everybody, and welcome back to the Fit Across Cultures podcast. This is podcast episode 48, and I'm joined today by Brent Schuck, who is sitting in a lovely office in France right now. Brent, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to start right away just by you introducing yourself, saying a couple of words to the audience by, you're obviously currently in France, but you're US American. So how did you come about being there, and what brought you to, pursue your career in basketball?
Okay. I'm Brent Schuck. I was born in Manhattan, Kansas. I grew up overseas, though. My mother's a teacher, so I had an opportunity to be everywhere: Asia, Europe. We were in Japan for 6 years, Germany for 3. So I have a knack for the international relations, the cultures. So that's an advantage that I have. But basketball was always option A, B, and C for me. If I didn't make it in this, then I don't know what I'd be doing right now. But that's kind of the mindset that it takes to, really get involved in the basketball community, the real basketball community, not the NBA.
Yeah. The international community, right? And it's much smaller than people think. I mean, people all know each other, and you always bump into the same people, same faces. Right. And I love that you say that there wasn't really another option. Do you think that has influenced your drive in terms of making it work and finding ways to keep going?
Absolutely. I like to say everything is an interview for everything else. So everything that you're doing, saying, and doing has an impact on, your abilities to move up in the basketball world. So,
yeah. Taking it back a little bit in terms of your basketball career, because I'm sure people are interested. Where have you started playing? I mean, if you've lived overseas for a long time, did you actually play while you were a kid in high school, or when did you start your basketball career?
I was a typical 8th grader, and then I came back I was a 6-foot 8th grader, came back as a 6'6" freshman, and finished the year at 6'7.5". So
wow.
I didn't really have much of a choice but to pursue some sports.
Yeah.
I liked football and cross country primarily, and then basketball just kind of came along. So at that point, it was just basketball every day.
Cool. And so you went to Emporia for university, yes, which is in Kansas, right? And then how did you get your foot sort of outside of the U.S.? What did you do to get your first international experience as a basketball player, as compared to, following your parents around?
Right. If you really want to make an impact or succeed in the basketball community, you have to be an entrepreneur and interdisciplinarian. You can't just be a talent. You have to, like, for example, I was a basketball player. I'm a basketball player. I'm a marketer, a manager, a producer, a coach, administrator. You have to do more things for yourself than just, what you're good at. So you have to learn to communicate, network, and that's really important. In order for me to get my foot in the door, I probably messaged over 1,000 people in one summer, and I had 5 or 6 responses, and made the best out of that. Continued the same process, made some more contacts, networked, and just working my way up. It's really it's really a patient process you have to go through. So.
Yeah. And I mean, people listen to that like 1,000 messages. It's not just hey, I get a recruitment call and then I'm off to France or Spain. I mean, that might happen to the 0.5% of college graduates that have the stats that just make them so attractive. But if you have the drive, you can still make it work. And that's, I think, it's a really good takeaway, because if you are entrepreneurial, like you said, you find a way, right? You find an avenue. So what have been sort of the main contact points or platforms that you've used to reach out, because you were not in the country? I think once you're over the year, it's easier to network. You get to know people, and they might have leads because they get to know you, right? But what do you do when you're so far away?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, to show you where I was at in terms of resume, I probably played less than 50 game minutes in my entire college career.
Wow.
Keeping that in mind, I had to use Eurobasket, which shows teams, coaches, agents. Our just made cold contacts, just saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm capable of, film, resume, everything. And eventually someone may have an opportunity for you. And you have to take what you have available to you. You may not be able to choose between options at first, but like I said, I took a job in China coaching. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even playing. I had to start coaching children, and from there I made opportunities to play minor leagues, and I played every level. Yeah. Semi-pro, and now I'm finally starting to break into the professional world, and it's taken years for that to happen.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't play in college, so anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Starring at my university, 1 or 2 play, but the rest of them, went to the 9-to-5 world, and this is what I wanted to do. So if you want something to happen, you have to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. So what kept you going in these moments where you were not playing, you were, taking sort of an indirect way through coaching or, as you said, marketing yourself constantly to others? What keeps you going in these moments?
Well, I would say the people. You have to be in it for the people. Half of business, I would say about half of business is how you treat people. Mm-hmm. If you feel welcomed, involved, engaged, then people they're going to go to work for you, But if you just treat it like a business and make people feel like they're under you or employees, then they're not going to want to help you, and there's no reciprocation.
Yeah.
So half of this business is really just how you treat people.
Yeah.
Going to help people when you can, not being selfish. I've given opportunities for myself to play to other people, and in return, maybe somewhere down the line that will come back and benefit me.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I mean, first of all, integrity, right? And then also not expecting something in return instantly. I mean, you know this, but a lot of people that listen might not, but there's a lot of cultures where relationships are so important, and they're not important in this sort of instant gratification kind of way. You do a favor for me, I return the favor, next week. No, it's like 2 years down the line, right? So they remember and they keep in touch, and that's really, really important to remember if you're dealing, especially with countries like China and Japan, but even here in Europe, some Southern European countries are like this as well. So it's not as quick and fast as it might be in the States, right?
Right. I'm really glad I got to experience China, because I really learned a lot about cultures and treating people. That's where I learned that was China. When you would try and do business, you would take them to dinner. You don't even talk about what you're trying to do. You just engage with them, get to know them, establish long-term friendships with them. And then after maybe a drink or two, you talk about what you want to do.
Exactly.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. And especially the going out and entertaining and doing karaoke and drinking. And, oftentimes I get this sort of, I get this feedback from people that are not used to this, like, this is all useless. Like, why are we doing this? Why don't we just get straight to the point? But really, they're testing you, right? They're like probing your trust. They want to get to know you. There isn't this instant trust that we might have towards others. So they need to know you better. And then a lot of doors open, and I'm sure that's what you've experienced. The longer you're there, the more they know you, the more things happen for you, right?
From working with children, I've met more coaches and professional decision makers than I have through anything else. And that's through not even playing. Yeah. Just meeting people, right?
So what was the most exciting experience in China for you from a basketball point of view?
The most exciting thing for me in basketball, it wouldn't even be a basketball on the basketball court memory. It's actually off the basketball court. I was in China. I had a Chinese friend who played, and we would just go around. And for example, one night we were eating dinner, and I saw a foreigner who I tested her English. I said, "Hello, how are you?" And I heard, "I'm good. How are you?" I said, "Oh, perfect. English." I had 4 months. I had zero English. So I just wanted to make sure I knew how to speak English still. Yeah. So I invited her over to my table, and the 3 of us had dinner. And it turns out that this Romanian lady has been working for the Beijing Today international newspaper.
Wow.
So she ended up doing an article on the company that I was working with and the business we were doing. And from that, it just went on to another great relationship. So
yeah. So lots of coincidences, but then, being open to that and reaching out and engaging. Yeah.
And here I am doing a podcast with the owner of Fit Across.
So. Well, we're happy to have you. So excited. What is sort of next for you? I mean, if you were to look for, 5 years, and you obviously seem to not, be ready to give up on any of this. So I'm just wondering, like, what's happening for Brent in the next 5 years? What's your plan?
My 5-year plan involves building youth camps. Mm-hmm. I've already started that in China. I'm doing that right now in France. I have someone covering for me for an hour right now. I'm working right now.
Yeah.
So that would be a side venture that I would like to do, and then continue playing as long as possible, and then transition into the administrative side.
Cool.
To be involved with basketball for as long as possible.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you said in the beginning, that you actually need a lot of skills to, keep going in this industry. What are sort of the main skills that you think players or, people that want to break into this industry need to have? I mean, apart from just being patient, you mentioned, marketing, entrepreneurial skills. What has helped you the most, and what did you develop over time?
Something that I've noticed right away is if you want to be around quality people, you have to be a quality person. They're going to keep players that are selfish. They don't like to interact with, they don't like to interact in the community. You have to want all aspects of this. If you want to be in business, you have to want all of it. That's going to be long hours. That's going to be engaging with the children of the community, helping with the club in other ways, promotion. So I would say just having a good personality, good characteristics is really going to help you. It's going to take you farther than your skills are, honestly.
Yeah. It's the reputation, right, that you're building.
That's huge.
Yeah.
In China, they have players come over only on reputation. Skills have little to nothing to do with it.
And that's something people need to remember also in terms of how they present themselves online to people, in social interactions, where they might come across as quite arrogant because they feel that, they're here, they've been paid to come and play, but in the long run, that reputation carries much further than you think. If you have one bad season where, people just don't like you, or you come across as someone that takes a lot of things for granted, I think that can really backfire in the long run.
I agree.
Yeah. Now you're a bit of an interesting case because you've already had a lot of international experiences before you actually, started playing and coaching. Oftentimes people go abroad for the first time when they get a contract or something. How do you think that has helped you adapt to these situations?
I'm used to being away from my family for 9 months at a time. I'm used to being alone, not speaking the language. So that's something that I'm used to already. Those are the issues that players will come across.
Yeah.
So usually clubs will try and give you resources to help you engage in the community or get used to what happens in the area. But it's really up to you to immerse yourself and learn as much as you can. If things seem different, you just have to see things in a different way. Like, this is how they do it here. And just be a student again. Enjoy the experience of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's how you get better, and that's how you learn, is just making yourself uncomfortable and then just learning. So.
Yeah, that's much easier said than done, though, I think, because oftentimes we do want to recuperate into that little bubble of comfort, right? And whether it's food or language or friends, I mean, everyone has sort of a different aspect that they miss more, I think. What have been your sort of success strategies for immersing yourself? Do you do certain things? Do you, like, when you get to a place, what are your sort of first routines?
Well, like you said, the basketball community is small.
Yeah.
I think you're maybe 3 or 4 people away from knowing somebody that knows anybody in basketball.
Yeah.
I think that's how small the basketball world is. So you have to use that to your advantage. I've met with people in China, and I met with them again on another side of the planet. So you just have to keep in contact, keep updating yourself. This is what I'm doing. How are you? What are you doing? What are you up to? How are things going? And just be genuinely interested in what other people are doing. And that's a great support system. It's just keeping in contact with others in the community.
Yeah. And they might hear about something that they can forward you and you pass information on, right? It's a good community vibe, definitely. So what platform do you use? Are you usually on Facebook or LinkedIn, or what do you use to keep in touch?
Well, in China, they have WeChat.
Yeah.
So everything else is blocked. You have to pay for access to the other social medias. So I used WeChat primarily for a while, and I kept Facebook around. And so I don't like to follow all the social media. So I keep Facebook active and WeChat active.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's strictly email.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the platforms that I use. And then Eurobasket is a great resource.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn's a good one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone has preferences, right? I mean, some people are just everywhere, and then others prefer one or two platforms. It's just interesting to see that you don't need a basketball specific platform as such. Once you have connections, it's just a matter of keeping each other updated, right? Whether that's through email or WhatsApp or WeChat. I mean, it obviously depends on where you're going, for sure. Yeah. So now you're in France, and how did that opportunity come about? Like, walk us through what happened for you to end up being in France.
France was a cold contact. I was introduced to a camp that's going on, up and coming French camp. So I was invited to come out here and help them coach, and at the same time meet with clubs, network with coaches, and I have a game tonight. Actually, I have a game tonight where there's going to be agents and coaches coming, and next week I have a tryout with a club. So it just comes along as you make it, really.
Yep.
You have to go out and reach, make things happen. You can't just sit around and expect things to come to you. You know, you have to say, "Here I am. This is what I'm looking for. What do you have available? What can you do? Can we meet?" So, like you said, being here is a great advantage. You can meet face to face and make things happen. So,
yeah,
if you have an opportunity to coach, I think coaching is a great way to get abroad and make opportunities happen for yourself.
Yeah. And in terms of resources that you invest, I mean, you know, obviously you're investing your time because you're coaching, but also in terms of financial resources, I think oftentimes people think, well, you know, this is all a great money game. You see people playing in the NBA making a lot of money. Do you typically pay, for example, for the flights to get to these places, or is that reimbursed? Like, tell us a little bit more about that setup, because I'm sure people are dying to know how much that actually makes.
Well, that is case sensitive. Each situation or each circumstance is different. That's between you and whoever you're speaking with.
Yeah.
Usually for a playing job, most cases you will get flown out and accommodated with housing, food, and whatever you need. Yeah. For my coaching jobs, I was fortunate enough to be flown out and accommodated as well. So that's something that you need to decide what you want. What do you want most? Do you want to put money down to go somewhere, or do you want to invest your time and have someone fly you somewhere and help them with your time and maybe have a chance to connect with some clubs? Yeah. In my case, I took the latter. I was flown out, and I'm making the most of my spare time to meet with clubs and coaches, but that's just because I'm a great networker. I can reach out to people and make things happen in my spare time. So that's not an issue for me.
Yeah. But that means you negotiate each case individually every time. Yeah. Right. So that's also something to be aware of. It takes a lot more time than people think, right? It's not just one email. There is some back and forth and negotiating involved, and you need some skills to negotiate.
Right.
Yeah.
Know your worth. for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. And don't just take the first offer because you're so eager to go, which I think you learn in the process, right? You might make that mistake once and then hear from your fellow coach or something that they negotiated something completely different.
I've seen people get exploited completely, and it's a bad situation. So maybe you should do your research, reach out to people, and just ask their opinion, what they know,
Yeah.
what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. Now,
Um,
for someone that doesn't have a lot of film tape because they didn't have a lot of playing time, or their stats just weren't that great in college or in their youth leagues, let's say, if they're coming from Europe, what do you recommend for them to do in terms of getting more exposure?
okay. What I had to do was go to a minor league, collect film, and honestly, I just started off with coaching.
Mm,
That got me to other places, got me involved in other foreign markets, so I could just meet people face to face, do workouts, tryouts,
yeah.
and those got me my first jobs.
Hmm. Do you typically recommend exposure camps like international tryouts and those types of things?
There are so many camps that
Yeah.
are fundraisers, strictly fundraisers, just to fill agents' pockets, fill promoters' pockets.
Mm,
There are some legitimate camps, but I haven't attended a single camp ever.
yeah.
So
So
that's
there's different avenues to make that work, but it's definitely true. I mean, just over the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, the amount of camps and combines that have mushroomed, particularly in the States, it's amazing. I mean, and then, people are asked to put down a fee, they're asked to cover their travel costs. It's a big investment, so you should really do your homework to see if it's worthwhile.
who is going to be there, who has an opening for sure. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Are there actually agents there?
Actually interested, not just paid to sit there.
Yeah, definitely. So much to learn, definitely. So, what kind of advice would you have for someone who really wants to come overseas, doesn't know where to look and start? Are there specific places where you say, okay, they're more open to having someone come in from maybe a Division 3 or 2 college? Maybe let's start with regions. Like, what would you say would be a good place to look?
There are lately, this last year, I've seen more and more openings, job openings for players that are basically internships.
Mm-hmm.
It's no money or little to no money, and players are taking it. And honestly, it's having a negative impact on the market. It's killing the job market for Americans. But that's one route you can take, is just take a very low income job and get your foot in the door overseas.
Yeah.
Um, Another one is, like I said, just networking and seeing what other opportunities there are abroad besides playing that can get you over here.
Yeah.
Because if you start with a low-paying job like that, it's really going to hurt your chances on moving up.
Yeah.
Because it kind of reduces your quality as a player.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't personally recommend doing that. I would recommend being patient, like I was, and work your way into a good market.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, and you said, it's destroying the market. And of course, it's understandable from a club's point of view. If you can get someone to work for $500 a month, then why would you, look for someone that's more expensive if there's a line outside waiting to get that job? So that's always a demand and supply type of question, right? And as long as people are hungry to take it. But what I always urge people to do is, if you're taking such a low paying job, if you are,
Right.
first of all, have a look at the living expenses in that country, because you don't know how much that little money is actually worth. It might just be like enough to buy 2 coffees a
Yeah.
week. And then the other thing is, specifically ask if there are opportunities for you to work on the side. Like, will you actually have a permit or some sort of visa that allows that legally? And can you maybe find a sponsor or some sort of engagement where you can coach, or you can use your other skills, for something to build up your CV in another way? Because otherwise, honestly, you're just gonna sit around, you won't have money. There's a high probability that you're gonna feel miserable.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a visa issue in China.
Mm.
I was misinformed about my visa, and I overstayed my plane visa, and it was expensive,
Yeah. Yeah.
very expensive. So
Definitely check the visa. I've heard situations of people being brought in on a tourist visa and then just like, yeah, it's going to work out. We're going to figure it out. And then it never figured out and they had to leave again because you're not allowed to play professionally if you don't have a proper visa.
visa,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So in some cases, you can just exit the country and re-enter to renew the visa. In some other cases, you have to get a whole new visa. So that's something you need to communicate.
Yeah. Definitely. So you mentioned that you are obviously used to staying in touch and being away from family. How do you deal with, the time difference, staying in touch? What do you use? Like, do you have some sort of routines to check in with people?
Oh yeah, the notifications never stop. Just checking when I can.
Yeah.
But I have certain time frames when I know someone's available to talk over their lunch period and it's dinner time here or vice versa. So
yeah. So you have a pretty good idea of when is a good time, and then just working it into your routine. Yeah.
I have a routine. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Cool. In terms of the challenges, I mean, you've already mentioned feeling isolated, being far away from home, not speaking the language, which I'm sure was an interesting experience in China. I mean, I've lived in China as well, and the first 3 weeks you just feel like an alien.
Where were you in China?
I was in Tianjin, so in the north, which, it's a city of 11 million Chinese, but not a lot of people know it when you're going outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend plays in the CBA team there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and they have good teams. They have a basketball team. They have a football team. They're pretty big in sports, but it wasn't that tourist city. It wasn't a city where there's a lot of international tourists going to, maybe for a day. So it was definitely more Chinese than maybe Shanghai or Beijing. But where did you stay?
I was near Shanghai.
Okay.
So, yeah, very touristy.
Yeah.
Great markets, though. Great markets.
I bet. I do miss it sometimes, I have to say. Just the friendliness of the people and the bustling atmosphere of like walking around. It felt really, really quiet when we came back to Europe.
Yeah. I know for a fact I'll be back in China for a couple of years at least.
Really?
There's so much to do in China. It's a great market right now.
So how do you estimate the Chinese market in terms of basketball? I mean, obviously, there's a huge investment happening, and lots of foreign leagues are investing. I know the NBA is big in China, but also the Australian Basketball League is really pushing to enter the market there. And then obviously the Chinese are bringing in foreign players to make it more attractive. What do you sort of foresee in the future?
The second division, the NBL, just doubled their American import limit. So they're taking in more Americans this year. I see it going nowhere but up in the next 5-10 years. Mm-hmm. The Chinese skill level is moderate, but they're getting better. So once the Chinese nationals get better, I think there's going to be a higher level of play and there's going to be more players going over there. Mm-hmm. More competition. So I think it'll be improving. And the youth basketball business is everyone's involved, everyone's engaged, all the kids want to learn. So I think that the skill level will improve and that'll help everything else.
Can you talk about the fans for a minute?
The fans, oh my gosh. If you don't look like them, if you have brown hair or blue eyes, you're famous instantly, whether you play basketball or a sport or not. Yeah. They're just so intrigued by American culture or foreign culture that, they're just eager to be around you, and it's fun. Go to the market. If you just go to the store, you're taking pictures, signing autographs, just out in public any time of the day.
Yeah. I don't even want to know in how many Chinese family rooms, there's a picture of me and my family because so there's a lot of domestic tourism in China. So people come from the countryside to go to the bigger cities to take pictures and see,
Right.
you know, their country, and they completely freak out when they see someone that's foreign, because in the countryside they obviously don't get that many tourists. So it was really interesting when you would be standing next to a landmark and they'd be taking more pictures of you than of the landmark.
There's a good chance you were the first Caucasian person that they've ever seen in their life. So
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's also where I think, you know, coming back to your point about being humble, being well respected, I mean, being someone of like showing respect and just integrity, I think is so important, because you don't realize how much of a diplomatic purpose you serve when you're in another country. As you said, there's a lot of people that have never met somebody from that country, but even in, you know, in Europe, there's a lot of stereotypes around other countries, particularly US Americans. So when you come over, you're also helping to break some of these stereotypes by being not as people would perceive you, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to give you the floor. I mean, first of all, where can people get in touch with you if they want to know more, if they have some questions? They're like, "Ooh, I need to follow up with Brent. He probably knows somebody."
Probably. You can contact me on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
or my email is bschuck, BSCHUCK at g.emporia, EMPORIA.edu.
Great.
Feel free to email me or contact me at any time. If there's information that I have for you or something I can do for you, I'd be happy to help.
Great. And I'll make sure I'll link it in the show notes as well. So if people go to fitacrosscultures.com/episode 48, they'll find information about you. They'll find the video. They can listen to the audio if they don't want to see our faces. So there'll be lots of stuff for them to engage with. Do you, so you said you're on Facebook, you don't have Instagram. What's your WeChat account if people are?
My WeChat is BSCHUCK and the number 7.
Okay. Perfect. And for those that don't know what that is, you know, something from, it's a social network in China.
You have to have it.
Definitely. Okay, so I want to close off by just, you know, giving you a last couple of minutes to wrap up and give any advice that you have for people in terms of really embracing, you know, the opportunity to go abroad. Like, what do you get out of it? What's the benefit? We've talked a lot about the challenges, but you obviously keep on going, so there must be something to it. And there must be something that keeps bringing you back. So what would you say to someone that's uncertain about going abroad? Why is it worth it?
Well, first of all, you have to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, why are you doing something? Okay. I like basketball. I like to travel. I like to experience new cultures, and basketball gives me that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So you first have to know what you want to do, and you have to take the steps necessary to make that happen. You know, you have to have a strong mentality. You have to be willing to keep going when others give up. I sat the bench my entire college career, but I knew that I was going to be involved with basketball, so it wasn't an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
what do you get out of it? I mean, what makes you look back at this and say, amazing, like I'm glad I didn't give up?
Well, you just said it. I'm here in France, networking with professionals. I'm meeting great people all the time, speaking on the phone right now. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I get to see and do all the time. It's a great life. It's not lucrative. It's not the NBA. But if I were in the NBA, I wouldn't be able to experience the things that I'm doing now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy where I'm at.
I'm so glad to hear that. You really sound like someone that's genuinely enjoying what you're doing. So I'm glad to see such a good example, you know. So I mean, obviously if people want to get in touch, we'll share all your details, but also really take Brent as a great example, because if you are sure that you are up for this and you love to be uncomfortable, like he said before, and you just really want to stay involved in your sport, then there will always be a way. There will always be an avenue that opens up if you don't give up. I think it's very, very, very important to reiterate that point, right?
If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door.
Exactly. That's a great saying. And that's a great way to end the show. Thanks, Brett. Thanks for being on. And hopefully we'll see you around again.
Definitely.
Thanks.